Mark Zuckerberg is in absolute panic. Meta's most secretive and ambitious artificial intelligence project has just collapsed into a catastrophic disaster, exposing an internal surveillance nightmare that has turned his own workforce against him. For months, Meta executives quietly built an unprecedented surveillance state inside their own company, harvesting the daily actions of their most skilled engineers to build AI agents designed to eventually replace those very same workers. But the entire master plan just blew up in their faces. A catastrophic security failure has exposed tens of thousands of sensitive internal databases, sparking intense internal protests, crippling morale, and forcing Meta to slam the brakes on its entire AI roadmap. To understand the sheer scale of this betrayal, you have to look at the unspoken contract that built Silicon Valley. For decades, the most brilliant engineers, developers, and creatives flocked to megacorporations like Meta because they were treated as the ultimate asset. You brought your talent, you built groundbreaking software, and in return, you were compensated and respected as a creator. The tools you used were supposed to help you build the future, not monitor your every breath. But Meta has quietly dismantled that contract, transforming their highly paid American workforce into unwitting laboratory subjects for an artificial intelligence experiment that feels pulled straight out of a dystopian nightmare. In April 2026, Meta launched something they called the Model Capability Initiative. On the surface, corporate leadership dressed this up with the usual buzzwords about innovation and workflow optimization. In reality, it was a massive, non-consensual data harvesting operation targeted directly at their own United States-based employees and contractors. Management quietly installed highly invasive tracking software across work devices, specifically engineered to monitor every single mouse movement, every keystroke, and capture periodic screenshots of everything happening on the display. This surveillance wasn't limited to a few specific internal work programs. The tracking tentacles wrapped around more than 200 applications. We are talking about deep, invasive monitoring of Gmail, internal company tools, private conversations on Slack, and actual programming workflows inside VS Code and GitHub. But here is the part that should genuinely make your blood boil. This was not a mistake, and it certainly wasn't about measuring simple employee productivity. This was a calculated business decision engineered at the highest levels of Meta's leadership. The company needed real-world behavioral data to train advanced AI agents under secretive programs like the Agent Transformation Accelerator and Meta Superintelligence Labs. They realized that the best way to teach an artificial intelligence how to navigate complex computer interfaces and handle everyday computer tasks was to literally copy the movements of their most highly skilled human workers. When you install tracking software that monitors Visual Studio Code and GitHub, you aren't just tracking when someone logs in. You are recording the very logic, the creative problem-solving process, and the intellectual property of a senior developer. You are capturing the exact sequence of how a human being codes a solution, so you can feed that sequence into a machine learning model that will one day be asked to write that same code for free. Mark Zuckerberg himself defended the project in a leaked internal town hall, arguing that the data extracted from skilled internal employees was vastly superior to anything they could simply buy from external sources. He defended the intense secrecy around the project by claiming he didn't want competitors copying the idea. In plain English, they were forcing their own workers to train the exact algorithms that are being designed to eventually replace their jobs. The data was supposed to be fully anonymized and restricted strictly for AI training rather than performance reviews, but given what happened next, those corporate promises were practically worthless. The hypocrisy of the entire initiative was staggering, and the internal backlash was immediate and fierce. European employees were entirely exempted from the Model Capability Initiative because the European Union enforces strict privacy laws that protect workers from this exact kind of corporate overreach. That geographical split reveals the legal cynicism at the core of this operation. Meta knew exactly how invasive this software was. They knew that if they tried to pull this stunt in Germany or France, they would face immediate, crippling fines. So, they deliberately targeted their American workforce, exploiting the lack of robust federal privacy protections in the United States to turn their own citizens into an unpaid data farm. American workers were given no such protection and absolutely no option to opt out. participation was mandatory. Remote workers even found their home internet bandwidth being massively consumed by the sheer volume of surveillance data being continuously beamed back to Meta servers. Furious employees didn't just sit back and take it. They began organizing internal protests, circulating leaflets that accurately rebranded the initiative as the Employee Data Extraction Factory. They recognized the bitter irony of the situation. They were being treated not as human talent, but as a disposable resource to be mined for algorithmic training data. Then, in mid-June 2026, the entire surveillance house of cards came crashing down in spectacular fashion. You cannot build a massive, centralized database of invasive surveillance data without creating a catastrophic security vulnerability, and Meta proved that point perfectly. Due to what the company casually dismissed as a permissions misconfiguration, a massive internal data leak erupted across the company's network. Around 45,000 Hive database tables were suddenly ripped wide open and made accessible to a massive portion of the employee base. This wasn't just generic, anonymized training data that leaked out. The exposure included highly sensitive private conversations, internal AI prompts, confidential human resources data, and deeply personal employee records, including tax documents and medical information. Incidental data capture turned into a worst-case scenario. Think about what that actually means. Imagine logging into your workstation and realizing that your private messages, complaining about management, your detailed medical history forms submitted to HR, and your sensitive tax information are suddenly sitting in an exposed database for any curious coworker to browse. The company that has spent years telling the public and government regulators that they can be trusted to secure the personal data of billions of users around the globe could not even protect the tax and medical records of the employees, building their own software. When an organization builds an architecture designed to spy on its own people, that system inevitably becomes a weapon of mass exposure. The data they promised would be securely anonymized suddenly became a completely open book. This wasn't just a technical glitch. It was a fundamental failure of trust, ethics, and basic corporate governance. Meta leadership went into full panic mode. They were forced to immediately investigate the breach, pause the entire model capability initiative, and scramble to figure out how their top-secret AI training program had turned into a historic privacy violation. The irony is completely undeniable and deeply satisfying. In their ruthless pursuit to build the ultimate artificial intelligence, they deployed a surveillance tool so reckless that it blew a hole right through their own internal security. As of late June 2026, the entire program remains paralyzed. Meta claims they are reviewing their safeguards, but the trust between the executives in the boardroom and the engineers actually doing the work has been permanently destroyed. The incident has now fueled massive, wider debates across the entire tech industry regarding AI ethics, basic employee rights, and the terrifying expansion of corporate surveillance in big tech. What is happening inside Meta right now is not just a rough patch for one specific project. It is a loud, flashing warning sign about the future of corporate work in the artificial intelligence era. Big tech companies are no longer satisfied with just harvesting our data when we use their free applications on our phones. They are now actively building infrastructure to harvest the physical movements, thoughts, and creative workflows of the people actually building the software, turning human intelligence into raw material for an automated replacement. The era of the tech worker being treated as a valued creator is dying, replaced by a model where even the most skilled engineers are just seen as training wheels for the next AI agent. So the question you have to ask yourself is this: will we continue to accept a world where massive corporations treat our every keystroke and private conversation as their personal property? Or is it finally time to draw a hard line against this level of surveillance capitalism? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden truth of the tech industry.